Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Whiskey Cove. And in this video, we look at 6 bourbons that are just not worth the hunt. Run the video. Alright then folks, let's get into this video, shall we? So you might recall we did a video of 6 bourbons that I felt were worth hunting for. So this is a bit of a play on that, and this is just 6 bourbons that I feel are just not worth the hunt. If you're new around here, consider subscribing, and if you enjoyed today's video, hit that like button. Go ahead and check out our homepage. We're doing some really fantastic videos here, and we're doing some great content, some store pick videos, or some store haul videos. We're doing some whiskey review videos. We're doing some blind tasting. We're doing a lot of tier lists and that sort of stuff. So go ahead and check us out over there. So then let's get into things. And the first bottle, I actually do not have an empty or full bottle of this. This is the Basil Hayden's, not the regular small batch, but just the whole lineup. I've had the small batch, I've tried it, I've had the toasted, I've had the Caribbean rum, I've had the 10-year, and none of them have been worth hunting for at all. Okay, your small batch you can find pretty readily available, but I've seen like the 10-year go on allocation lists and like run up to like $80. And then I've also seen the toasted, which seems to be pretty hard to get in some places, go up to like $60, $70. Guys, this whiskey is just not worth that value. I'm not necessarily saying it's bad whiskey, but paying these crazy prices and hunting for this whiskey is just not worth your time whatsoever. The small batch is okay, but the thing is about Basil Hayden's is the whole whiskey lineup is all 40% alcohol, 80% ABV. So it's really at the bottom of the ABV mark. Yes, they kind of tailor themselves for people who are just getting into whiskey, but for the prices, you know, $60, $70, $80 for some of those other editions, it's just not worth it, guys. So if you're out there and you've never tried the toasted or the new one that's just come out, the red wine finish, and you're thinking about looking for them, don't waste your time. There's a lot more other options out there for a lot cheaper price. So coming in at number 2 on this list, as the bottle that I would not recommend hunting for, this is Baker's 7. So recently, Baker's has seen a massive increase in price. I don't know where it's coming from. I know that a lot of whiskeys have been going up in price, but this bottle is starting to get really crazy. Like, you're seeing it very consistently sell for $70 plus. This is a single barrel product. This is 7 years and 10 months old. This is 53.5%, so it's a little bit more in ABV. The bottle is really cool, and for those folks who know me know that I like to kind of collect these bottles, but I won't pay for over $50 for this bottle of whiskey. I think I found this from in like Louisiana, just outside of New Orleans, and I paid like $45, and I think it had just been sitting on the shelf for ages, and this is just what they paid for it back when it probably came out like a year ago. So this bottle of whiskey isn't worth the price tag of $60, $70, $80. The whiskey in it isn't that good. It's pretty one-dimensional. You get like Jim Beam, get like those typical characteristics of like the peanut shell. You get a little bit of sweetness, a lot of like the rye spice comes through, but it's just not very well balanced for me, and I just really don't think it's worth hunting for. I would just kind of let the bottle of whiskey fall to you, but if you see it for like $60, $70, I would just pass really hard on this bottle. So that was Baker's 7, the single barrel. So then next up on this list, possibly a little bit of a controversial one, and that is Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. So I didn't put this bottle of whiskey on this list because it's a bad whiskey. I don't believe that this whiskey or this bourbon is worth hunting for because there's just been so much put out lately. I passed on this bottle of whiskey about 40 times this year. I just see it everywhere. Like, okay, maybe that means that I don't have to hunt for it to find it, but maybe it's into some other states where the allocation isn't kind of as good as it is in Colorado, where you're not seeing this as much. Just don't go hunting for it. At some point, it's going to come to you. I've seen these marked upwards to $100. Some stores are just marking them up crazy, like it's this super allocated bottle. But the fact is that this is just everywhere right now. And Elijah Craig have done something really smart with their single barrel releases that they've been doing to stores. So this is a 12-year barrel proof product. But what they've started to do, and this is an excellent marketing move, by the way, is that they've started to do like send single barrels to stores so they can sell as a single barrel product. And they've obviously had to pay maybe a little bit more because the markup of those products or markup of the single barrels are normally at like $10 or $15 more than this. And because this is a 12-year, a lot of these single barrels are coming in at like 8 years, 9 years, 10 years, 11 years. I've never seen a 12-year single barrel version of this. So they've been able to get the whiskey out of their warehouses sooner and charge more money for it, which is an excellent move because people are just lapping this stuff up. But I just see it everywhere, and I've bought so much in the last 2 years. that it's just not worth going out there and looking for, because eventually it's just going to fall into your lap. Don't pay more than MSRP for this. I think MSRP for this, or at least in Colorado, has kind of gone up to about $75. If you're paying more than that, then probably stop. There's not too much whiskey kind of better than this in its category. Maybe look at Larceny, which is also by Heaven Hill. It's pretty solid. Maybe like Old Grandad, Old Forester is also a really good one. Knob Creek 12, the 60% ABV or 120 proof, or just the Knob Creek single barrels are probably equally or as good as this. So I wouldn't go hunting for this bottle, just kind of let it fall into your lap. That was Elijah Craig barrel proof or the single barrels. Next up, we have Caribou Crossing. So this is a hard bottle to find for most of you out there. This usually runs at about $50 to $70 depending on where you get it at. And obviously this is a beautiful bottle. It has this beautiful cork on top. It's all metal. It has like a picture of an elk or a reindeer. Oh, I guess it's caribou, right? It comes in this really nice, beautiful bag. A lot of people say it's kind of like the Canadian Blantons. But guys, the juice in this bottle is not good at all. Kind of tastes a little, kind of noses a little bit like paint stripper. Yeah, I was hoping it would really open up and open up and open up, and it just hasn't. It has this really weird like paint stripper, kind of like alcohol gel note to it. There's not much going on here. It is a single barrel product, so it has that going for it. But anybody out there who's had the opportunity to actually try one of these Caribou Crossings will know exactly what I'm talking about. It's just not worth the hunt, guys. I promise you that. You know, if you want to go hunting a single barrel product, something that has the same sort of package as this, even though I don't like to say it, but Blanton's just has so much more going for it in terms of flavor. So that was Caribou Crossing. So next up on this list is another bourbon just not worth the hunt, and that is going to be 1792 full proof. So we recently did a blind with all the 1792s. We'll put that link down in the description. And spoiler alert, the 1792 full proof did not do so well. Kind of tastes really hot on your palate. I think this comes in at what, 62.5%. So obviously it is a full proof barrel strength product. But you just don't get as much sweetness as you do with like a lot of other barrel or cask strength products. So that really like hot note from the whiskey just kind of comes straight through and just kind of blows your palate apart and blows your mouth apart. It's not a very enjoyable whiskey, and that's why I put it on this list as a whiskey or a bourbon, just to not go hunt for. If you're able to hunt for a 1792, I would hunt for the bottled in bond or the aged 12 years. Yes, they're not cask strength, but I think they're excellent bourbons compared to this. And if you're going to hunt for a 1792, those are probably the two that you want to go and get. So that was 1792 full proof. And then the last bottle of whiskey on this list, probably also a controversial one, is going to be Booker's small batch. So with Booker's, obviously, you know, it's a beautiful box. You can have the Booker's writing down the side there. You have the lid that comes off here, and it kind of comes out like a bottle of wine, props out, and you have this beautiful card that comes with it. It gives you the breakdown of the mash bill, where the whiskey comes from in Jim Beam's kind of distillery area, which warehouses, and it gives you a little bit of the story about the batch there. They make between, I think it's like 2 and 4 releases a year, depending. This one is back from 2020, but I've had a few Bookers. And when I first started collecting Bookers, or when I first started kind of enjoying whiskey and kind of building up a collection, like going back quite a few years ago, I saw Bookers as this whiskey that I really wanted to get. It was about $60 at the time, and it was kind of worth the hunt at that point. You could see it in quite a few different places, but for $60 it definitely was worth the hunt. But every year the price just seems to be going up, and I think the MSRP on this is now $100, and it's $100 for a 6 to 7 year bourbon, coming in roughly around 60 to 65% alcohol, or 125 to 130 proof. Guys, this whiskey is just not worth the hunt. It's kind of like a hotter version of the Baker's 7. Obviously, they're both made by Jim Beam. But for me personally, the ones I've tried, they're just not very complex. Again, it's more of those Beam characteristics. And if you really like the Beam characteristics, then you probably do really like Booker's. I'm not saying it's a bad whiskey, but I'm just saying it becomes really one-dimensional. After you've tried a bunch of Beam products, that you're just kind of getting the same product, just wrapped up in a different kind of box, bottle, or kind of skin, but ultimately it kind of feels like it's just a different proof version of a Basil Hayden's as a Baker 7 or as a Booker's. And if you're paying $100 for a 6 to 7 year batch proof, then you know it kind of wears on you a little while, especially if you're someone who's trying to keep up with all these local editions, like the batch 1 of this year. Like I think they had 4 batches a total this year, and if you're paying $100 a batch, you're paying $400, close to probably $500 after taxes and whatnot and gas of going to get them and hunting them down. So for that reason, don't go and hunt the Bookers. That's my personal opinion. I probably also could have put a Little Book on this list because they do some crazy stuff with the mash bill, and it sounds like it's a lot of experimental stuff that really shouldn't be used as kind of like a release to public. It probably should just be like a distillery only release. However, I didn't put that on this list. I did put the Bookers as the one, or there's the most bottle of whiskey that I believe you shouldn't go out and hunt. I'm seeing these actually still quite a lot in stores. People probably obviously still buy them quite a bit as well, just because they're almost like a collector's piece. Not for me though. I'm actually going to be doing a video shortly of is Bookers getting better or worse. I have a 2015 Bookers, I have this 2020, and I have a 2021, and we're just going to go and blind them and kind of figure that out as well. So hopefully you enjoyed today's video as 6 bourbons that you shouldn't go out and hunt for. And if you like what we do, don't forget to subscribe to the channel as we drink through the world's whiskies one glass at a time. Cheers.